So we are live. We are live, we are live, we are live. It's really interesting. I haven't got this lighting set up, so it's giving off a little bit of a light shadowy vibe, which I'm not quite sure if it's artistic or not. It's probably, I think I'll bring this up. Shall I bring this up and see if this works a bit better? Now I look like I'm in a campfire. Anyway, my name is Tash, Mitch. I am an energy worker, multidisciplined energy worker. I'm a business coach. I absolutely adore business. And I am an empowerment coach as well. And basically the idea is I help people to get empowered, feel empowered, walk empowered, talk empowered. So this particular topic of conversation is around clearing karma and how that then feeds back into business. And it's a very interesting one because I've been really delving into the elements of karma recently, and I've been doing a lot of work around tapping, so karma and tapping. And karma being just basically contracted ways of seeing, contracted ways of being, limiting beliefs. There's karma in the sense of we come to some degree programmed with a blueprint. And when I do a lot of soul work with people, so when I actually view into someone's soul blueprint, what I see in sort of very abstract ways is parts of their blueprint that feel and seem very activated, switched on, alive. And those parts feel like they run very fluidly for that person. And then there are other parts that are dimmed, sort of deactivated, switched off. And those are the parts that often there's maybe a seed of a thought that wasn't in alignment, a seed of a thought that basically wasn't in flow. And it now is creating, I'm basically going to put the lighting down at this point because I'm holding my lighting thinking, you know what, this isn't working. Yeah, so basically, it's a seed of a thought that could have happened through the generational line. So maybe, for example, a grandmother taught a certain way that was, taught and thought in a certain way that was, limiting, and she passed that on to her children, and they passed it on to their children. And so suddenly you have a generational line of a contractive thinking. When it comes into business, it's massive because these things start to play in our visibility. It starts to play in our capacity to be resourced, our capacity to receive, our capacity to stand empowered behind what it is that we're here to do. So, for example, in the work that I do, I meet people who have potent gifts, just basically gifts that they've been crafting from since the time they entered planet Earth. And yet, very often the languaging of maybe thought leader, the languaging of maybe sometimes the languaging of guru and expert gets a little clumsy, right? Because it can play into a sense of ego that everyone's trying to avoid to a certain degree. But it's really important for somebody who's been crafting something over a period of time that has knowledge and wisdom that they've been working on and fine-tuning over a period to be able to stand up and say, I can help you. I've been doing this thing for some time. I can, I've got the capacity to make some changes in your life. I've got the capacity to impart something that can, create an uplift for you, that can create healing for you, that can create transformation in your day-to-day life. And whatever it is that you choose to say about that, you could call it expert, you could call it guru, you could call it whatever it is that you want to call it. At the end of the day, is to be able to sort of say, I feel confident that I've been doing this thing for some time. I might not know every single thing about it, but I know enough about it that at this point, I'm in the subtle elements, I'm in the crevices, I'm in the creases of it, that I've got so very intimate with it that now I can share it with you, and I can impart something that could be very helpful to you. The thing is, when we have got these kind of like karmic generational contractions, so when I say karmic generational contractions, I have met people who have been so incredibly well-meaning and so in love with, their children, or in love with their family, or in love with their community. And they would say something along the lines of, people like us aren't pushy. And essentially what they're saying is that we stand always at the back of the queue and we let everybody else get served. People like us aren't sort of like frontish, So it's kind of like, we stand to one side, and we see that as a noble thing to do. We see it as a noble thing to wait till everybody has been served before we get served, or to stand in the back of the queue, or to be the last one that steps onto the plane, or whatever the thing is, right? And so because of that pride and nobility that is attached to something that can actually be quite contractive in nature, it carries on. And so when the little grandchild is running to get onto the plane, or running to get to the front of the queue, the grandparent holds them back and says, people like us don't do that. People like us, we know our place. So that in and of itself starts to become a way that robs you of visibility. It robs you of your capacity to show up, because people like you, people like us, we don't show up that way. People like us aren't show-offs, we keep everything close to our chest. So it's like you've heaped the whole family in that sort of like comment. People like us, we're not show-offs, we keep everything close to our chest. So as a result, visibility now is a massive issue. It's kind of like anything that is deemed like camera pointing in your direction feels like showing off. Anything that's deemed standing up on a stage or saying the thing is feeling like your cards aren't close to your chest, So it starts to get in the way. And when the thing about the entrepreneurial journey, or the business journey, however you want to say it, it's a journey where it's kind of like a soul university. And I've said this so many times, I say this often in the Quantum Business Studio, that actually to have a business, to be an entrepreneur, can sound sexy and it has quite amazing parts to it, but it is also the biggest university of the soul that you can get into, because it will ask you to go in and deal with these contractions. Otherwise, the business cannot grow, or it cannot go on. So if you have a contraction with visibility, then there's a sense of having to go into that contraction and find a way for the business to become more visible. And this goes into the receiving part, this goes into the money part. And when we talk about generational issues now, so let's say that we have defined ourselves by the class system, and it feels like every single country in every single part of the world has some way of referencing class systems, right? So yeah, basically someone says good evening and I can't see who it is because I'm on StreamYard. So if you can give permission to StreamYard on Facebook to show your details, I can say good evening to you. Yeah, so basically generational. So, you know, that sort of sense of knowing your place, or the biggest part with this is a seed that can get planted that can be detrimental to not only this generation but to generations forward. And what do I mean by that? If for whatever reason somebody feels that they have been held hostage, or they are not in a position to express themselves freely, to be who they are, and that somebody else has got the power over them, and let's say that that person is manipulative in the way that they are wielding that power. So they have that person, they've seen the vulnerability in that person, they've seen the contraction in that person, and now they feel like, okay, we can use it to our gains. So they are now sort of in this position of keeping that contraction in place by planting seeds that allow that contraction to, you know, become deeper and deeper. That this thing happens, right? It happens. It can happen in an employer-employee relationship. It can happen in any kind of work relationship. It can happen in a family relationship. You know, it can happen in so many different dynamics where you get a person in power who is overpowering or overshadowing somebody else. And because for whatever reason that dynamic feels aligned, you know, you can call it narcissistic, you can call it whatever it is, but basically there has to be two parties that are agreeing to something for that behavior to stand, right? So if those two parties are in agreement that one is going to be the powerful one and the other one is going to be the one that's victimized or that's abused or whatever, then that dynamic starts to play out in a way that it writes a whole blueprint. You know, it writes a whole blueprint around what somebody has the capacity to receive, what somebody has the capacity to, the capacity to deserve, the worth of the person, the ability of that person to make any kind of change in the world because of that worth. The value of that person, you know, all of these things get wrapped in to that dynamic. And let's say for whatever, you know, that at some point these two people parted ways. There's a lot of work that has to be done on both sides for that those contractions not to catch on with the offspring and with the people that are around them. You know, that's what we call generational karma, you know. And let's put it in this way. If somebody was in a position where they were the one in power and they were creating hurt for other people, there are so many narratives that have to run to keep that in place. We don't talk to these people. We don't show emotions in these places. We don't express ourselves here because we will get taken advantage of. We don't leave our doors open. We lock up. We basically, you know, keep ourselves safe. We can talk to these people, but we can't talk to those people. Those, you know, so all of these things start to create the world by which we see, perceive, and interact. And in that world, there's a whole heap of contraction. So the clearing of the karmic elements is going in, and business gives you like the spotlight, it gives you the magnifying glass to go in and start to clear these things off. Because ultimately, the money part, like, you know, receiving money, how you see money, has money got, you know, religious connotations? Is there sort of like this sense of you know, certain people have the capacity to be wealthy and other people don't, you know, all of these things. If we don't go in and clear those scripts, clear those contractions, then it creates issues. So this is where I am at the moment. It was kind of like in this place of just pressing record and just riffing around, yeah, just where I am in terms of working in my own business, where I am in terms of what I'm expressing in mentorship and in teaching, and where I am in terms of like expansion, you know. And this journey of really going in with a fine-tooth comb and doing the subtle work, it seemingly doesn't seem to end. When I say that, I mean that basically we all have a place that we are, you could say is our comfort zone, but also a place that we have put a boundary or we've put a fence to say that, you know, make ourselves feel safe. Let's say it like that, right? And as we start to grow, as we start to expand, as we start to evolve, the boundaries of that fence has to move. Because if it doesn't move, it means that evolution can't happen, growth can't happen. So we're continuously coming up against the boundary that we have created for our own safety and then having to expand that. And so this work in terms of karma, in terms of release, in terms of clearing, is a constant. And when you know it's a constant, you're just showing up to do the work, basically. So this is me riffing on basically karma and clearing of karma to actually stand empowered in business, to stand empowered in your entrepreneurship journey. I am Tash Mitch. I am the Business Energy Alchemist, and I will see you again soon. If you're watching this in a replay, if you've watched this, then please hashtag replay. Let me know that you're here. If anything has been coming up with regards to this conversation, any triggers, any insights, any feedback, any takeaways, then yeah, just leave a comment and let me know, and I will see you again soon. So much love, 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 love.